The Where Our Minds Wander podcast may contain sensitive content and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Greetings, fellow wanderers, to the places our minds wander.
The house at the end of the dirt road, where disembodied voices whisper and strange sounds make the living shiver.
Where shadows lurk at the edge of the woods, just outside your back door. And mysterious lights speed beyond reason across the clear night sky.
Odd events throughout time that lead you down the rabbit hole.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Beth.
And this is Where Our Minds Wander. Hello and welcome to Where Our Minds Wander, all you fellow wanderers. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, everybody. So, before we get into tonight's episode, we really just want to take a moment to acknowledge the recent passing of a member of our Wanderers family, John. Now, you all might remember John's story from our Halloween episode. He and his daughter, Miranda, shared their story about their experiences with what they felt was their family dog, the spirit of their family dog. And it was a really, really sweet story. And we just want to say that our thoughts are with Miranda and her family.
They most certainly are. Sad, sad news.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we'd like to thank those of you that sent in your recommendations for board games. We're definitely going to look into some of them once we're done with our main board game and its expansions, which should be a year or two, I imagine.
We've been playing every single night, and we're, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through just our second scenario.
Yeah,
so
but we won one.
We did. It was quite the moment, the epic moment when we completed our first challenge by working together.
I know, it was great teamwork, and we didn't even argue.
I know.
There were no hissy fits. Nobody got up and walked out of the room.
I know.
It went well.
It did.
Who'd have thunk it? Also, Stefano from Italy shared some pics with me on Instagram of figures that he was painting for his board game. And they were absolutely incredible.
I was so proud of the ones that we did, but then when you showed us, me, myself, and I, when you showed me the pictures, I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, they look pretty realistic.
Yeah, they're pretty incredible.
Well, you know, had we invested in some really good paints, I'm sure we could have done half as well as he did.
I know I was going to suggest that we send him some pics of ours, but then I was like, no, I don't want to embarrass us that way.
So, Stefano, I will be getting back to you. I'm sorry I haven't been able to respond, but we've been awful busy. But I'll definitely send you some of ours. And you might want to look at them when, in your dark room, because they are nowhere near as good as yours. But thank you for sending them. Now, I did briefly see a message or a comment from someone. I don't know who it was. And when I went to open up the message, it just poofed, disappeared into thin air. But they had asked if we could do a show on some Native American folklore. So tonight, we're going to do just that.
Yes.
So whoever you are out there that went poof into thin air, well, thank you, and here it is.
So I'm going to begin by telling everybody a story. Now, just, disclaimer, it's a rather dark story. It's a bit gory. It's a bit on the racy side, and it's a bit terrifying. It's a Cheyenne story. There was once a family, a man, his wife, and their 2 young daughters, who lived alone in a solitary tent. Each time the man would prepare to go out hunting for the day, he'd paint his wife's face and body before he left. While he was gone, his wife always went to the same lake to get water and to bathe. One morning, while the husband was gone and the wife went to bathe, a snake rose out of the lake as if she had summoned it. The snake spoke to her, asking her to come further into the water. She did what he asked of her. From then on, morning after morning, the wife went to the lake and met the snake.
That the racy part?
Well, yeah.
Uh-oh.
It's not really a snake. It's a euphemism.
Oh.
One day, the husband came back from hunting and asked why all of the paint was gone from her body. The wife replied that she had gone to the lake to bathe and it had all just washed off. The next day, the husband performed the ritual as usual, but he only pretended to leave the area to go hunting. Instead, he followed her to the lake. He watched her go to the water's edge and call out to the snake. When the snake appeared, the woman went out into the water. The husband, in a jealous rage, jumped out from his hiding place and attacked the snake, hacking it into pieces. Then he turned his rage on his wife, killing her and chopping her into pieces. He brought the pieces of meat home, cooked them up, and fed them to his unsuspecting children. Then the husband said to his children to tell their mother when she came home that he went back out to get some meat he had left strung up in a tree so the wolves wouldn't get it. After he left, the youngest daughter said that their mother must be teasing them by being gone so long. The older daughter shushed her sister and wanted her not to say anything bad about their mother. Just at that moment, their mother's head came rolling up to them. It stopped at their feet and said, "I am very sorry that my children have eaten me up."
Oh my God.
Yeah. Horrified, the sisters took off running, but their mother's head rolled along after them. Thinking quickly, the older daughter took a rock or a stick and drew a line across the ground so deep that a small chasm opened up. The rolling head stopped just on the other side, unable to cross it. Eventually, the younger sister became very hungry as they wandered along, and when they saw a deer, the deer fell down dead when the older sister looked at it as if it had been shot. The sisters were now able to eat. Soon they came upon a shelter, and each time they were hungry, all they had to do was look at an animal and it would fall down dead. 2 black bears and 2 black panthers made their way to the shelter and stood guard for the sisters, keeping all other predators or people away. Not far away, a camp of Cheyenne people were starving. The sisters heard of them, and when the people arrived asking for food, the 2 sisters gladly shared what they had. When they'd had enough to eat, the camp moved on, but the girl's father, who had been hiding among them, stayed behind. The sisters could not forgive him for what he had done to them, so they caused 2 lions to jump upon him and kill him. So that was an example of a Cheyenne rolling head story. And a rolling head, also called a cannibal head, a severed head, or a wife's head, was part of not just Cheyenne lore, but also Ojibwe, Cree, and Arapaho. According to nativelanguages.org, rolling heads were considered undead creatures that were out seeking revenge. Usually, a rolling head would have long, snarled black hair, and the head, which was just a head, it didn't have a body, would roll after people that it wished to kill and eat. In some Iroquois lore, a rolling head can cause whirlwinds with its long, snarled hair. Typically, the rolling head stories are about adultery. Obviously, the snake in my story wasn't a snake. It was another man. And the wife is usually the victim. She suffers a terrible death and becomes the revenge-seeking rolling head. There are some versions, though, when adultery is not the cause. Instead, it's witchcraft or breaking a different societal rule. The stories all generally involve forced cannibalism, though. And usually it involves children being forced to eat their mothers. Freud would have a field day.
That he would. Well, that's what you get for going to the lake and getting some other guy's snake, I guess.
I was going to say dallying with the wildlife.
Right.
Eventually, the rolling head becomes so vengeful and evil that it has to be destroyed. Different tribes have different ways of doing this. You can either trick a rolling head into rolling off a cliff or into a deep pit, or you can try to drown it. There are some rolling head stories that use this as an explanation for how sturgeon came to be. They were drowned rolling heads. But for a completely different rolling head story, but one that's equally gory and terrifying, I came across this Wintu legend on the pyramidmesa.com site. Now, before I start, I did put the story into my own words. But here it is. Long ago, there was a village filled with people all along the west and east banks of a river. The chief's youngest daughter had just reached puberty, so the chief and his wife planned a dance to celebrate. The evening before the day of the dance, the chief told the other women in the village to make sure they went in the morning to strip bark from a maple tree to turn into a skirt for his daughter to wear during the dance. But they couldn't let his daughter know about the skirt ahead of time, and she was not allowed to go with them. When the daughter woke up and discovered that all the other women were gone, she decided to go look for them. She found them stripping bark from a maple tree, and soon she was helping them. But as she helped, she got a splinter in her little finger. It bled and bled, even though her older sister tried to make it stop. It seemed like the tiny wound would bleed forever. The other women grew frightened and ran back to the village to find the chief. When they told him what had happened, the old chief just shook his head in disappointment. Back at the maple tree, the two sisters waited for help to come. The younger sister stuck her bleeding finger in her mouth and sucked on the blood, hoping to make it stop. But it didn't. It just bled more and more, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make it stop. Alone in the darkening woods, the two girls didn't know what to do. And then something awful happened. The younger sister had tasted so much of her own blood that she was overcome by the need to bite off her own finger. And then, filled with a taste for human flesh, she devoured her own hand. There was nothing the older sister could do. Her younger sister was becoming a rolling head right in front of her horrified eyes. So, before long, The younger sister had devoured every inch of her own body until all that was left was her disembodied head. Back in the village, the wise chief knew that his daughter, now a rolling head, would come. He knew what she would do if she made it all the way to the village, and he was afraid. So he ordered all of the people to gather their weapons, but it was too late. As they looked to the north, they could see the rolling head coming for them. She rolled to the edge of the village and waited. Their weapons were no match for her. One by one, she devoured them all. Her need for human flesh was now so monstrous and huge that the rolling head went out into the world, devouring almost all of humankind. Eventually, she came to a creek that was too wide for her to cross. Sitting just on the other side was a lone man. She called out to him, and he threw a rope bridge across the water for her to roll across. She was halfway across when the man gave a sudden jerk with his arm and sent the rolling head careening down towards the water. At that very second, a pike leaped out of the water, opened its mouth, and swallowed the rolling head in one gulp. Those are rolling head stories. There are a lot.
They're pretty disturbing.
They're very disturbing.
Kind of comical in a way, too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to think about it in a comical way rather than a holy crap, that's terrifying.
Yeah, what kind of shit show is this?
Yeah. So if cannibalistic rolling heads aren't disturbing and creepy enough, there's also the Wabanaki legend of the Skadegamutc, or the ghost witch monster.
Well, that sounds like it could be a little bit better.
Nah, not really. The Wabanaki lived primarily in Maine and later branched out into the 4 large tribes of Maine: the Maliseet, the Micmac, the Penobscot, and the Passamaquoddy. According to All That's Interesting, the Skadegamutc was once a living evil sorcerer who refused to stay dead after its demise. Part vampire and part undead zombie-like ghost, a Skadegamutc wanders the earth looking for humans so it cannot just drink their blood, but eat them. What a Skadegamutc looks like varies by story, but in general, they often first appear to humans as a ball of light. Then they transform, or show their true nature, according to urbanlegendsmysteryandmyths.com. They are generally very gaunt, almost skeletal, and wear nothing but their burial shrouds. They shuffle through forests and graveyards at night, looking for 2 different kinds of people: those who are suffering tremendous grief and those who are physically lost. There are 2 ways that you might know that you are being stalked by a Skadegamutc. You might see their glowing red eyes peering at you from between the trees, or you might hear their wheezing, raspy breathing. But don't forget, a Skadegamutc was an evil sorcerer in life, and they don't necessarily lose their powers just because they are now undead. So, you could also find yourself powerless under one of their spells. There are a bunch of Skadegamutc stories, and I'll share just a few of them with you. First, from allthat'sinteresting.com, there's the tale that was told by an Abenaki teenager. Once, there was a man and a woman who had taken shelter in a grove of trees. Because they were strangers to the area, they didn't realize right away that the grove they had chosen was the burial site of an old sorcerer. But soon enough, the couple noticed the corpse of the magician strung up in the trees. He must have been put there recently, and the woman insisted that they leave the grove in search of somewhere else to spend the night. The husband, who was too tired, refused. He built a small fire and promptly fell asleep. The poor woman lay awake all night, too terrified to move, especially when the fire grew smaller and smaller, and she began to hear a terrible and strange gnawing sound. When dawn broke and there was enough light to see, the woman jumped up from the ground and ran over to her husband, only to discover that his entire left side of his body had been eaten away, and his heart was gone. The petrified woman ran away as fast as she could, hoping to find anyone who might help. Eventually, she found a village, but no matter how much she begged and told them to come, they just didn't believe her. Finally, 1 or 2 men gave in and agreed to go back to the grove with her. They pulled the magician's body down from the tree and gasped in horror at the fresh blood smeared across his face. Now, was there any way that the man and the woman could have protected themselves from the Skadegamutc? Although it was too late for them, there are some things, thankfully, that you can do.
Oh, great. Give everybody some advice in case they run across one while out in the woods.
I severely hope not, because all of these tales are going to give me nightmares. They're terrifying. The most obvious thing you can do, of course, is to avoid the woods at night. If you must be in the woods, then make sure that you have a fire burning all night long. If you hear that telltale wheezing, run away as fast as you can. But if you can't get away, don't even bother trying to cut or shoot a Skadegamutc, because regular weapons won't do anything to them. The only way to kill a Skadegamutc is to pitch it into a fire. Now, as I'd said, there are variations of the Skadegamutc stories. In some, a single victim might hear that terrible rasping breathing circling their cabin or tent for weeks before the undead sorcerer strikes. In other versions, it's not just one Skadegamutc, but an entire group of them traveling together. They might appear as little more than shadows, moving in totally synchronized movements, their glowing eyes all bobbing up and down at the very same time. But I'll leave you with one last story from the Urban Legends, Mysteries, and Myths website, which I don't do this very often, but I'm going to read it to you verbatim because it's just that creepy. And it's called The Restless Corpse. A known witch was once buried at the edge of a village. Yet each morning the soil above her grave was disturbed, as though something clawed its way free. Villagers took turns watching at night, huddled by fires, and swore they heard the dirt shifting, slow and deliberate. At dawn, they sometimes found claw marks etched into the frozen ground. And always, someone glimpsed her stooped figure watching from the tree line, eyes glowing just beyond the reach of firelight. Bleh! Man.
It's a bit eerie.
They're all eerie. I'd never heard such terrifying Native American folklore before, but, a listener asks for folklore. I'm going to see what I can do.
Yeah. Well, these are great stories if you're out camping in the woods at night.
Yeah.
Especially if you got little kids.
Or if you're just huddled alone in your bedroom on the 3rd floor of your house.
Yeah, that too. Well, perhaps tonight I'll sleep out on the couch, so you have to spend your night by yourself in the bed.
That's terrible.
Well, we'll return after this quick break.
Hey, did you know? Ancient Egyptians cared about their teeth. In fact, they likely invented toothpaste. Their formula included dried iris flower, salt, pepper, mint, and crushed rocks. But more than that, 3,000 years ago, ancient Egyptians went to the dentist to have cavities drilled and teeth pulled. They also had braces made of gold wire to straighten those ancient pearly whites. If you lost adult teeth or had had them pulled, you could always get a bridge made from replacement teeth and gold or silver wires to strap that new tooth or teeth into your mouth. Who'da thunk it?
All right, we are back. And I'm also going to start off with a story. This legend comes from the Paiutes, who lived in present-day California and Nevada. Centuries ago, a Paiute chief was completely heartbroken when his wife passed away. Filled with grief, he decided to follow her to the land of the dead. In order to follow her, he had to follow the spirits of many warriors, who led him through long underground tunnels filled with many perils. He was forced to fight many evil spirits, terrible beasts, and supernatural forces, including demons. But his love for his wife was so strong that he was able to defeat all of them. Eventually, he came to a very narrow rock bridge far underground, and on the other side, he could see the beautiful green meadows of the Spirit Land. The only problem was that this bridge crossed over a huge bottomless pit. The brave chief made his way across the treacherous bridge and was greeted on the other side by a beautiful maiden who said she was the daughter of Shinaav. She took him by the hand and led him into a huge amphitheater where thousands of happy souls danced together in the afterlife. Although he was glad that his people were happy in the afterlife, the chief worried that he would never find his wife among so many spirits. The young maiden told him to sit down at the edge of the circle and wait. Sooner or later, his wife would dance by. When he saw her, he needed to grab her very quickly and carry her back out the way he had come. But neither of them could look back. For 2 nights and 3 days, the chief sat and waited. Finally, on the 3rd night, he saw his wife. He ran to her and scooped her up, running with her towards the rock bridge. At the last second, unable to help himself, the chief took one quick glance back at the beautiful Spirit Land. He suddenly found himself standing alone. Saddened at his own failure, the chief returned to his people and told the Paiutes all about the glorious Spirit Land waiting for them beneath the ground. Today, the land where the Paiutes believe the underground city of Shinaav exists is known as Death Valley, between California and Nevada. Death Valley National Park straddles the border between the 2 states and spans an impressive 3.4 million acres, or over 3,000 square miles. It includes the part of the Mojave Desert and 4 valleys, including Death Valley, which it's named for. It's the largest national park in the United States and has the hottest temperatures in the U.S. also. In one year in the 1930s, the temp actually reached 134 degrees. Over the years, as white settlers moved in, Death Valley was the site of many different things, including borax mines, where many Chinese immigrants worked, a Japanese internment camp built to house 60 Japanese Americans who were moved from Manzanar, and gold prospectors. It's also often used for military exercises. So it seems unlikely that there could have ever been elaborate tunnels under all of Death Valley that led to the spirit world, an underground city full of happy spirits and lush green meadows. And it certainly couldn't hide an elaborate tunnel system that led to an underground city of ancient giants. Well, except that's exactly what a handful of men spread out over a decade or two said they found before they all disappeared. White European settlers started telling stories of an actual underground city beneath Death Valley in the 1920s. And they weren't just trying to entertain people with a great story. They actually truly believed that they had stumbled upon something pretty remarkable. According to Legends of America, a gold prospector named White was in the southwest corner of Death Valley when he began telling people some fantastical stories in the 1920s. He claimed that while he was scoping out an abandoned mine at Wingate Pass, he accidentally fell through the floor and found himself inside an underground tunnel. White decided to follow the tunnel deeper and deeper underground. While he traveled through this tunnel, he came across groups of rooms, all filled with leather-clad mummies. Hundreds of them. They were surrounded by bars of gold and other treasures. But the rooms in the tunnel leading further away from these mummies were filled with a yellowish-green light that spooked him. So he turned around and made his way back up to the surface. White said he returned to the mummy's tunnel 2 more times after that, first with his wife and the 3rd time with his prospecting partner, Fred Thomason. When Paiute Indian Tom Wilson heard White's story, he immediately thought of his grandfather. His grandfather used to tell everyone that years before. He himself had come across some underground caverns in Death Valley. One time while he was exploring them, he walked for miles through various tunnels beneath Death Valley until he actually came across other people down there, a whole city's worth. They were pale-skinned, wore leather clothing, and ate food that he had never seen before. They spoke an unfamiliar language. Their homes were bathed in a strange greenish-yellow light. Wilson's grandfather actually stayed with them for a while. When he finally returned to the surface and went home and told people why he had been missing for so long, very few people believed his tale. Wilson approached White and asked him to bring him down to the city so that he could prove his grandfather had been telling the truth. White said that he had a small group of archaeologists interested in seeing it also, so Wilson could join their little group. During the expedition, White somehow got the group lost, and they never found the city. Tom Wilson continued to search for the city until he passed away in 1968. But he never did find it. In 1947, a man named Howard E. Hill gave a presentation to the City of Los Angeles Transportation Club. His presentation was on the work of another man, a retired physician named Dr. F. Bruce Russell. Russell claimed that back in 1931, he had moved out west for health reasons, and one day while he was sinking a shaft for a mining claim, the soil beneath his feet gave away and he fell into a cavern. He and an archaeologist named Dr. Daniel S. Bovee decided to explore the complex set of caverns and tunnels beneath Death Valley. As they explored, they stumbled upon the remains of 3 mummified men. But according to grunge.com, these mummies were each 8 to 9 feet tall and clad in leather from some unknown animal. Beside them, on the rock wall, were strange hieroglyphs. Legends of America gives us more details about what these giants were wearing. They each wore a medium-length jacket that resembled dyed sheepskin and leather trousers that ended slightly below their knees. The rooms that they were in also contained some artifacts that resembled either ancient Egyptian or American Indian ones. The two men kept going further into the catacombs, coming into a large underground room that they called a ritual hall, since it was filled with the remains of the following animals: elephants, tigers, and dinosaurs.
Wait, in Death Valley? Elephants and tigers? And dinosaurs, oh my?
You heard that right.
Okay.
Russell claimed that there were at least 32 tunnels under Death Valley, easily spanning 180 miles.
Wow.
Skeptics like the Los Angeles County Museum pointed out that dinosaurs and saber-toothed tigers lived 10 to 13 million years apart, so it was almost impossible that these animals were preserved together in the alleged caves. So, nobody really took Russell seriously. But Russell insisted that he was telling the truth, and he found a group of investors who were willing to back future expeditions back into the caves. They called themselves Amazing Explorations Incorporated. It's unclear why Dr. Bouvier was not included in this group. However, when Russell returned to Death Valley, he and his expedition team couldn't find the entrance back into the caverns. At some point after this, Russell's car was found abandoned in Death Valley with a burst radiator. His suitcase was still in the back seat. But Dr. Russell was never seen again. But this isn't the end. In 1932, a former prospector named Burke Lee published a book called Death Valley Men. In it, he describes an underground city under the Panamint Mountains. He wrote that two friends of his, Bill and Jack, were also exploring near Wingate Pass when one of them fell through an old mining shaft.
Happens a lot.
It does. When the one guy shouted up that his friend had to come down and see what he was seeing, the second guy dropped down too. Bill and Jack allegedly walked through the same tunnel for 20 miles, right into the heart of the Panamint Mountains. They allegedly also entered a large cavernous room filled with mummies dressed in leather, except these mummies also held gold spears. They said the treasures in the rooms were immense, from large solid gold statues to drawers filled with gold and jewels. There was even a perfectly round polished stone table in the center and massive stone slab doors that swung open easily because of ingenious counterweights. The treasures were so enticing that both men pocketed a few before heading further down the tunnel. They claimed that the tunnel eventually sloped upwards and they emerged halfway up the eastern slope of the Panamint Mountains. The two men offered to show the treasures that they had taken to archaeologists, but before they could, a quote, friend of theirs stole everything from them. Undaunted, they offered to bring a group out to the entrance, but when the group arrived, they, of course, couldn't find it. Jack and Bill were beyond confused and frustrated. They knew the entrance had been there, and they insisted that they were telling the truth. Lee's story ended up with this. The two men searched and searched until one day they were just never seen again.
That's also a common thread.
That it is.
Falling into the tunnels and then not being able to find them again and then disappearing.
There's something strange going on here. Now, just to be clear, there are several known tunnels beneath Death Valley, including several old mining shafts and tunnels and the 2,094-foot-long Burrow-Schmitz Tunnel. There are also naturally made ones, like Slot Canyons and Devil's Hole. Devil's Hole is a unique limestone geothermal pool that's estimated to be over 500 feet deep. Its average temperature is 90 degrees all year round, and it's the home of the endangered pupfish. The pool is also known to sometimes have significant tidal wave surges due to distant earthquakes. Devil's Hole isn't connected to the stories of the underground city of the giants, but the area that is, Wingate Pass, is part of the China Lake Naval Weapons Center and totally closed to the public. Wouldn't you know?
Of course it is.
Of course, because you know what they're doing.
They're looking for the tunnels.
They know where the tunnels are.
Yeah. Where the 8 to 9 foot mummy giants are.
And we're never going to know about them.
When you were describing Jack and Bill's description of the underground rooms, it reminded me so much of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I knew you were going to say that. It does sound like it.
Yeah.
Look at all the prehistoric animals they found in these caves. The saber-toothed tigers, the mammoths.
The dinosaurs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hanging out together.
And scientists say, well, that couldn't happen because they were too far apart, millions of years apart.
Right.
But why couldn't it?
Right. I love how they poo-poo things that, don't necessarily have to be poo-pooed.
They can be such arrogant assholes. I mean, why can't everybody just get on board, work together, and say, okay, let's figure this out. We were wrong. But let's put the puzzle pieces together and actually come up with our history instead of fighting back and forth constantly. I mean, come on. We want to know, right? This shouldn't be about who's the proud peacock and who's right all the time.
Right. And that's the thing, is that it's such a big deal about maintaining the, status quo of what has always been taught.
Well, they need their funding, too, so they don't want to go against the,
Right. But at some point, you have to accept that what you were always taught was wrong.
Right. And like we've said before, a lot of times it's the amateurs that are finding things.
Mm-hmm.
Planets, caves, things like this.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a scientist out there, get your head out of your ass and start working with the amateurs. There's no reason for it. Don't be so proud.
Yes, I could see all the many archaeologists out there who listen to us.
Hey, you never know. They won't after this, I'm sure.
No, probably not.
Oh, well.
Well, everybody, if you'd like to know more about the Skadegamutc or the Rolling Heads or the underground city of giants in Death Valley, you can always check our sources in our show notes.
That you can. And if there is a topic that you would like us to cover, go ahead, send us an email. And if we can find enough on it, we will definitely put out an episode or half an episode.
Yes. Even if we couldn't see the whole message, which might have said, please don't do any more on that topic.
I don't know. It popped up on my phone. I went to pull it down and it went bloop. It just disappeared. So I went to Instagram. I went to TikTok. I went to X. I went to my emails, went to YouTube, couldn't find it anywhere. So I don't know. I think perhaps somebody sent a message and they said, oh, I don't know, I'll delete that. And then I couldn't find it. Or it's actually out there waiting to be uncovered.
I know, it'll ding in the middle of the night and you'll be like, oh, there it is.
Some amateur will let us know. Right.
Right.
Okay. With that said, join us again next week for an all-new episode of Where Our Minds Wander.
See you soon. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to traveling with you again to the places where our minds wander.
If you like what you heard, please take a moment and provide us with a 5-star rating and a comment on your favorite listening platform. It really helps us move up the list and become more visible on the podcast charts so new people can find us.
And thank you all for your continued support.
See you next week for an all-new episode.